Greetings. Thank you for watching this video. I've been wanting to create this video for a while now and finally had a little free time to make it. This video is an overview of connecting the zones of regulation with some of S.E. Hinton's famous novels in order to teach young adults about identifying and managing emotions. These connections can be created for teachers, therapists, clinicians, or even parents, guardians working with adolescents and young adults. About me, I've been working with individuals who have mental illness since 2016 after I graduated college. I worked with adults on an inpatient psychiatric unit. Then I moved to working with adolescents in a residential program for a few years. I then decided to make the transition from working in a hospital to education. Primarily, I was a special education educator working primarily with students who had mental illness, ERI, behavioral disorders, oppositional defiant disorder, ADHD, psychiatric issues, and trauma backgrounds. I've been working in a school for over 15 years now, and I was mainly a mathematics teacher, but now I'm a supervisor. The methods I'm going to discuss next has worked with me, as most of my students have emotional regulation impairment, primarily from internal and external stressors. Most of S.E. Hinton's characters are closely related to some of the students that I've served. I do believe this video can be beneficial to all young adults as the themes are universal. You definitely don't need to have an IEP or to be classified in order to get something out of these videos. Now, the zones of regulation were created by Leah Kroupers, so I have no affiliation with them, and there is a link in the description on their website. I was introduced to them while working as a teacher during a professional development session. They have become more and more mainstream with COVID and dealing with post-COVID, along with the importance of SEL, social emotional learning. I will elaborate more on them in the next slide, but they are a simple yet effective way to classify and categorize emotions for all individuals, regardless of age, socioeconomic status, etc., etc. And finally, without a doubt, the most notable and known individual out of the three, Susan Eloise Hinton, often referred to as S.E. Hinton. She is one of my favorite authors, and as someone who never liked or enjoyed reading, I always loved reading her novels and have reread them multiple times throughout the different years. She wrote the award-winning The Outsiders when she was only 16 and still in high school, which truly is a remarkable accomplishment. Pioneering the young adult novel genre, she truly is a legendary American author and someone who I definitely admire. Now, on to the zones of regulation, if you're wondering what the zones of regulation are. The zones of regulation are a way for individuals to visually see and classify their emotion based on the four categories. The four categories are shown in the photo, and it really reminds me of the Inside Out characters. You have your blue zone, which is sad, sick, tired. You have your green zone, which is happy, calm, feeling okay. You have the yellow zone, which is frustrated, worried, excited, loss of some control. And then you have the red zone, the mad, angry, terrified, elated, ecstatic, and one of my favorite ways to describe it, out of control. I've often taught the zones of regulation to my students by first reviewing each category and giving different examples. This is a great time for students to kind of elaborate, build on it, and have different conversations based on these four different categories. For me, applying the zones of regulation to fictional characters, such as the ones S.E. Hinton created, including Rusty James, Tex, or even Dally, is an easy way for students to see the emotions and how each character handles them, whether or not it's the best way. Most of the young adults I've worked with have emotional regulation impairment, so seeing the zones applied to other individuals helps them to get a front row seat to see what it means when you truly are in these different zones. It's important for young adults to realize that all individuals will transition from each zone. So I always give the example that my morning commute, I oftentimes go through all of these zones of regulations multiple times, and it really depends on how busy the Garden State Parkway is. Anyone that's in New Jersey would definitely know or be able to relate to that. So we can always strive for the green, but realistically, we will be in the blue, yellow, and red zone from both internal and external stressors in our lives for short and long periods of time. Now, we have our S.E. Hinton notable novels. These aren't all the novels she has written, but these are my favorite four. They all have a very strong, young male main character with a strong set of friends supporting them. All four have themes that overlap, such as poverty, death, abandonment, struggling, and making difficult life decisions, all while these characters are navigating adolescence and puberty. If you do read these novels, you will see characters are woven into each novel. To me, the ordering of the books that I have in this slide is the chronological order of each story, but if someone wants to correct me, please do so. You will notice that in That Was Then, This Is Now, the characters Mark Jennings and Miss Carlson also make an appearance in Tex, which is later down the road. I've always enjoyed reading these novels. If you are an ELA teacher, you should be able to easily use any one of these novels or even all of them in your classroom. If you check out the description, I have links for purchasing them on both Barnes & Noble and Amazon. But if you have a local bookstore, I'd encourage you to check that out first. There's nothing quite like the feel of walking into a bookstore and getting that nice whiff of the novels coming at you. Can't exactly do that with Amazon, but if you have a close enough Barnes & Noble, I guess that's a second. I will say these novels are relatively easy reads, and by easy I mean they are at a lower reading level. Although I don't know quite exactly what the reading level is, I do know most of the students that I've worked with were able to read these, even though most of them were far below their grade level. I was no ace reader myself, and I remember reading The Outsiders in 8th grade. I would imagine middle school and high school students should be able to easily read any one of these novels. Now, what I really like about not only the S.E. Hinton novels, but that they have all created videos to go along with them. This slide is just showing off the four novels that I showed in the last slide and how they were turned into the big screen. Out of these four novels, it's very interesting to see the different direction, feel, and vibe each film takes on. They are all pretty different, but are all very well executed. One thing to notice is each film is really accurate to the novel. Hollywood didn't take and adjust the story for their own artistic image. One activity I've done while reading That Was Then, This Is Now is to compare and contrast the novel to the film throughout the novel. I will say it was pretty accurate. Each film has some overlap with some familiar Hollywood faces. Emilio Estevez and Matt Dillon tie with playing the most different characters. Out of the four films shown here, they each play three different characters in three different films. If you are utilizing S.E. Hinton with the zones of regulation, but don't quite have the time to invest or commit to reading the entire novel, such as maybe a small group, working in a residential program, or even just outside of school, I'd encourage using just the films. Unless you have individuals who really like or want to read the novel, then by all means. Just a word of caution, some of them are rated R, so please be mindful of your audience. I generally recommend pre-screening the film to see if it is appropriate for the young adults that you are working with. All four of these films can be purchased on Blu-ray DVD. Again, see the description and the links. I believe all four of them can also be rented or purchased through various different streaming services. So now on to the activities to connect the zones of regulation with S.E. Hinton's characters. Again, these are things that I've done that have proven successful. I'm not going to have a whole link on like Teachers Pay Teachers. Honestly, all you really need is just paper and pencil or something to write with to do most of these activities. The first is the zones of regulation, examples of how different characters in the novel and or movie move through various different zones and why. How would you handle the various situations? How would you feel? What zones of regulation would you say each main character is in the most? Use evidence from the novel film to support your answer. So again, look at each character and definitely talk about the zones of regulation which they frequently are in, and maybe why. What are some of those internal and external stressors that are causing them to stay in there? From an ELA standpoint, I've always liked to compare and contrast the novel to the film. You can also do a project in which you describe living conditions in each setting. Writing, if you can write a letter to one character, who would it be? What would it say? What would you ask them and why? And then just from like a general overview, therapeutic wise, identifying internal and external stressors for the characters. You could also go into character development and analysis. Did the character grow? What are some of the signs in which you can see that they grow? Which character do you relate to the most and why? I also like to add, do you think it's a good thing or bad thing that you're able to relate to them? That'll kind of tie the students or the individuals in which you were working with into the characters, in which they could kind of reflect on themselves and start asking themselves some of these important questions. So I'm just going to take you through the 4 different novels and films, some of the different themes and stressors in which that could be utilized. A lot of these themes and stressors you're going to see overlap one another. I do think they are important for individuals to kind of understand and learn about. So Rumblefish has poverty. Motorcycle Boy and Rusty James are living very poorish in a studio in which they have no privacy with their father, who is an alcoholic. You also have abandonment. So their mother leaves them to go to California. You have leadership. So Motorcycle Boy has all the leadership and doesn't want it. And you have Rusty James, where all he wants is leadership and is fighting for it. You have death. The Motorcycle Boy gets gunned down by a police officer at the end of the story. I apologize if that was a spoiler for you. Just know I'm going to be going over some of these with these novels. And then you have substance abuse. So the father is an alcoholic. He drinks away their welfare income. That's something that's very relatable to most individuals. And then you have the Motorcycle Boy's ex-girlfriend. Her name is Cassandra, and we learn that she is a heroin addict who is not only addicted to the drug, but also to the Motorcycle Boy himself. Moving on, we have That Was Then, This Is Now, some of their themes and stressors. Again, we're in poverty, so I don't think they are quite as poor as Rusty James and the Motorcycle Boy, but they're definitely making ends meet. It's often discussed about Brian's mother, who's going for an expensive medical procedure, and how are they going to make the money up. You have death. So Mark's parents have died. I believe in the novel they talk about how they killed one another in a very violent domestic brawl. You have Brian's father, and then you also have Charlie, who dies throughout the novel. We also have violence and theft. Violence, a lot of times we learn about different people getting jumped in the novel and the story in the film. Brian himself gets jumped. They encounter a young boy, someone their age, in a hospital who we learn gets jumped also. We also have theft, and this is primarily on Mark's part. Mark, one of his survival skills in his environment has been that he's able to survive by stealing. So you see a lot of times throughout the novel and the film, he magically finds stuff that have kind of fallen off the truck. We also have the theme of growing up. This is more important for Brian than I think all of them. We also have loyalty. Loyalty's definitely kind of gone out, a theme that occurs throughout the novel as well. And then we have moral compass and forgiveness. So this one's up there, this novel and film for me. I think it's a real great story in which you really learn how things change. That Was Then, This Is Now is something I say a lot when I think about my own personal relationships with family members and friends, and how things change, how things, might have been a certain way in the past, but how they've, you know, changed. And again, change isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just something we all have to kind of be mindful of and get over. So now on to probably the most well-known and most famous novel and film, for that matter, The Outsiders. Again, 3 out of 3, poverty. Poverty is very big. The 3 Curtis boys live in a rundown house that definitely is in disarray. We have death. So Pony Boy's parents die. They show the traumatic scene of how they get killed in a car crash. We also have Bob, who is a sock, is murdered. We also have Johnny, who is a greaser, who dies from flames inflicted on him. And we have Dallas, who is also a greaser, who gets shot down by the police officers in the end. One theme that the Outsiders have that the previous 2 didn't have, or not as much, is the idea of the socioeconomic classes. In this one, it's most prevalent. There are the greasers, who are poor, and then there are the socks, who are wealthy and rich. This film and novel probably display it the most. We also, again, carry over with violence. We have the gang fights throughout the film, and it's often mentioned throughout the novel and the film. We have honor. I like this one. We have honor in that Pony Boy is able to meet with Randy before the big brawl and kind of have a little bit of a civilized conversation with him. And then the honor, the biggest one also, is Pony Boy, Johnny, and Dallas saving the school kids. Again, they were wanted fugitives on the run, but again, they put that aside and were able to save the school kids and put the school kids in front of their own well-being. And then we have the theme of family. The Curtis family, you could tell, is a very strong-knit family. Once you get past, the 3 characters and how strong they are, you also can see the themes within the greasers themselves. You can see it's a family unit, the way they kind of interact, take care of each other, look out for one another. So those are our themes and stressors from The Outsiders. And finally, this is probably one of my favorite novel from S.E. Hinton of all times, is Tex. I'm not sure why I like it so much, but I just do. So you have, again, 4 for 4, poverty is a theme. You have Tex living with his older brother Mason in a rundown house. You have a big theme as change and fear of the future. So this kind of ties in with the that was then, this is now theme, how things might change in the future. You also have some socioeconomic class theme. Interestingly enough, in this novel, the socioeconomic class isn't really clashing. It's just prevalent as a stressor. So you have Tex, whose best friend Johnny belongs to a family that is pretty well off financially, but they still choose to be best friends throughout the story. You also have death tied into this novel. Again, another reoccurring theme. So the death in this one is Tex's mother. We don't learn much about her other than how she passes away. We also have abandonment, even though it's maybe short-term or for only half the story. Tex's father has kind of gone out to the rodeos and done his own thing. So you could see how these 2 boys really have to take care of themselves, which is really Mason taking care of both of them. We have betrayal in this novel and story. We have Mason selling the horses, which creates a very hostile and definitely a rift in their relationship. We also have Tex finding out the truth about his father. So that's another kind of big spin and twist. The last theme I have for Tex is friendship. I really like the friendship Tex has with Johnny. And, you could just look at the different friendships amongst the different characters. Mason does have a friendship with Johnny's older brother, Bob, although it may not be as tight. You also have friendships and what it does to them. You have Lem, who interjects himself in there as well. And you kind of, learn and see about how they take care of one another, or lack thereof, I should say. So that's it. That's the conclusion of this video. I hope it's helpful. I certainly hope it allows individuals and professionals who work with young adults to kind of brainstorm and get some ideas. Right now, it's July 15th. I know there's a lot of young adults that are on summer vacation right now. This could be a great tool to be utilized for some young adults. If you're a parent guardian, if you work in a residential program, it's also a great way to tie it in. Again, I've been there, I've done that. And for me, if you just work in a school and you're just really trying to think about a way to connect with the students, whether it's from an ELA perspective, whether it's from a therapeutic perspective, whatever the case is, whether they're classified or not, I do think this is a great, great tool to be utilized. So I thank you for watching. Please comment if you have anything to comment on. I hope to hear from everybody. Hope everyone's safe and definitely staying cool. Thank you.